Okay, Oscar fans, nominations are out, and La La Land has tied the all-time record with 14. There are some jaw-droppers in there. Mel Gibson got nominated. We hadn't predicted that. And there are some potential game changers among the nominations. But first, let's talk about what's most important, our scores. So 3 of us have tied here, right? Marcus and Chris and myself all tied at 75%. Daniel's right behind with like a 74%. Who wants to start with overall impressions?
I thought it was pretty, I mean, of course, there's always going to be surprises, but it was pretty much based on guilds and based on other things we had seen in the past few weeks on target. I was really happy. 9 movies had really stood out at all the guilds, at the PGA, other than Deadpool. And I was really hoping it wouldn't be like 8. And so one of those 9, like the 9th one got knocked out. So it was the 9 that we thought it was going to be for Best Picture. And I like that this particular year because I think those 9 have really made their stand.
People in our forums are really, really upset about Amy Adams being snubbed. I mean, her film Arrival got 8 nominations. That's tied for 2nd place. The only film to beat it is La La Land. And, you know, how can these voters love the movie, the director, the screenplay, the sound, and all of that, but not the actress who's at the heart of the film? It's very, very shocking.
And especially an actress, let's point out, who has been nominated 5 times in the past. We thought that with this nomination and potential loss to Emma Stone or Natalie or even Meryl Streep, that she would tie the record of all-time losers. But so maybe it was kindness on the part of I don't know.
They were having pity on her. I don't, you know, looking back now, it's always easy to look back. Maybe that's just the passion votes weren't there for her like they were the other 5, and Ruth Negga being probably the beneficiary of that. But I also wonder about the strategy of her people. I mean, even if it was only a handful of votes, the strategy of putting her in lead for Nocturnal as well, you know, 5 or 10 votes might have been the difference between her. She might have had enough votes overall, people mentioning her name, but mentioning it for 2 different films.
Right. What was everybody's dumbest last-minute change of predictions? You know, last night I took out Michael Shannon and put in Hugh Grant. What was I know I have a fever. I've been sick for a week. I have an excuse, but stupidity is also a possibility. Am I alone? Did any of you guys do something really harebrained dumb at the last minute? Or not? I'm all alone here, right?
No, I'm sure I did, but I was really, really being conservative this time.
Yeah, I'm looking through my list. None of the boneheaded mistakes I made were last minute boneheaded mistakes. They were boneheaded mistakes that I had committed to for a while. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, everything looks. Yeah, I put in Lion last minute for cinematography. I'm happy about that.
I took out Mel Gibson about a week ago. After the DGA nominations, I thought the director's branch at the Academy is going to be it's smaller and going to be even harsher on him if he couldn't get in at DGA, which is way larger, and even, you know, a lot of TV directors. I didn't think he was going to get in at the Oscars. So that's one that I was totally wrong about.
I put in Taraji last night, but then, you know, I made the announcement on Facebook that I was having trouble with this prediction. I put in Taraji, and everyone was just so negative. You know, why are you doing this? You're crazy. So I chickened out and put Isabelle Huppert back in. But I don't think any of us got Ruth Negga. A few of the experts did, so kudos to them.
Let's talk about the Mel Gibson thing, because some of these nominations could be game changers, and this is, of course, could be one. It's not easy for actors to be nominated by the director's branch. Witness Ben Affleck with Argo a couple years ago. But if nominated, they often have a very good chance of winning, because at that point the vote opens wide to the full Academy, and they all get starstruck. And ooh, I think when the vote is limited to peers, to directors, they get a little snooty, like, oh yeah, you actors want to get on my side of the camera? Back off, you know. And then once this vote opens, Mel has an actual chance of winning. We've seen this award, this category, go as an act of forgiveness in recent years when Roman Polanski won for The Pianist. And we have that possibility here again, especially considering the fact that we have, in the past 4 years, a split between picture and director 3 times. That's now the norm because we have different voting processes. Remember, voters rank the best picture contenders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they just check off a winner among the 5 nominees for director. That said, since these are the 2 top races, do any of you guys think there's a chance it could split again, or is Damien Chazelle just an automatic winner here because he goes along with the La La sweep? Who has a thought here?
Yeah, I think La La Land is written in stone at this point. It doesn't feel like, I mean, if it had missed somewhere, maybe like if only one song got in, if Ryan Gosling didn't get in, if the screenplay somehow didn't get in, sound editing, musicals never get sound editing, and it got sound editing, so tied 14 nominations. No film that has gotten 14 nominations, obviously there have only been 2 others, All About Eve and Titanic, has ever lost picture and director. So, you know, I hate to be boring, but I feel like La La Land is kind of a foregone conclusion as of today.
The only thing I'm curious about, and Tom, you just had this great article about this on Gold Derby. What about the screenplay for La La Land? La La Land is going to win a ton of awards, but is it going to take home the screenplay award, or will it be Manchester by the Sea? Remember, they tied right at the Critics' Choice Awards.
Golden Globes. Remember, it was a complete sweep for Golden Globes, including the screenplay award. And when that happened, we all went, "What? Oh my God! It could happen." You know, we have not seen a win by a musical for screenplay in recent years. Even Chicago lost. They rarely get nominated. You have to go back to the 1950s to see wins by screenplays, and those were An American in Paris and Gigi. So they just don't seem to think in their minds, the Oscar voters, that that scripts that are sung have as much merit as they should might otherwise have. But that said, we do see sweeps at the Oscars because it's a popular vote. We saw it in the case of Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. It won every single of its 11 categories, therefore tying the record set by Titanic and Ben-Hur for the most. And that said, the question now is, can La La go all the way to tie or beat the record? And if you look at the past odds that we just had up for the nominations, you can see that it is ahead in 9. We'll soon have new odds, of course, but let's just give it those 9. And then it's got 2 nominations for song, so obviously it can't win both. So that means it's competing in 13 separate categories with 14 nominations. It's got 3 of those. The 3 that are up in the air are sound editing, costumes, and screenplay. And so sound editing sometimes gets married with best sound mixing, and we know it's going to win sound mixing. Musicals always win there. Last year we saw the 2 sound categories line up again with Mad Max. Costumes, it's in a neck-and-neck battle with Jackie. It's within shot of taking that. If it takes those 2, it's at 11. Do any of you guys think that can happen?
It feels like it to me. It feels like it's going to be one of those movies. I mean, the people that don't like the movie or have never seen it are going to have a really awfully boring Oscars. I mean, they're just going to really not know what to do, like I did last year with Mad Max when I didn't want it to win all those awards. So now I get the opposite effect since my favorite movie is going to win a bunch. So don't forget Ryan Gosling too. I don't think he's going to win his category.
Right. There's so many La La Land haters out there, but I just think they're jealous. I think that whenever something's popular, they just go out of their way to try to bring it down, but nothing's going to bring down La La Land.
Not just popular, but upbeat. There are just people that don't like happy, fun movies. They just don't.
And Paul, we were all talking about our scores earlier. You beat all of us. So congratulations. You're on mute, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So give us an acceptance speech. Paul came in second only to Glenn Whipp among all the experts, and he certainly beat all of us editors. So how'd you do it, Paul?
Well, it was the key was making last-minute changes, but the mistake I made was waiting till the very last minute, and unfortunately, the darn prediction center shut down me when I was just about to change my very last category. It's just a question of looking at the guilds for all those below-the-line things, understanding the history that correlation between the guilds and the various branches. Not drinking the Kool-Aid on some things like Silence. I think we were raised expectations for Silence. I think we were predicting maybe 6 nominations for it. So, but everyone did very well. I mean, it's a question of 1 or 2 or 3 out of over 100 and, what would it be, 120 or something nominations. So I just happened to be.
But there was another Scorsese
ahead.
movie that just did well in those crafts categories. Remember Hugo a couple years ago. So I don't think it was unrealistic for us to say, all right, well, this isn't going to be a big Best Picture threat, but it could pop off in those other categories, because remember, what happens there is that's where name recognition counts, and within the peer groups where those nominations are determined, they have favorites. But anyway, that said, I don't think it was that far-fetched to think that Silence could have done better than it did, but it did.
Except that it hadn't really done well. I did a thing called the Guild Scorecard that I kept updating, and it was never registering with those guilds, and they are sort of representational. I mean, I know the benches are much smaller, but boy, I don't know whether you. I heard when I just got in about Mel Gibson. I mean, that's got to be. To me, I wasn't predicting him. I don't know how many of our so-called experts were. I mean, that was the biggest surprise for me this morning.
And the Amy Adams snub, as Daniel or Marcus mentioned earlier. Or Daniel, I think, that the movie gets 6 nominations or 8 nominations, and it doesn't get a nomination for an automatic darling among the actors. That was a big surprise. All right, now that said, let's talk about Best Actress here for a second. This is really fascinating. If you buy the La La Land sweep, then of course Emma's got this in the bag. She fits all of the major criteria. Normally, she is the ingenue. She's a past nominee, so they're familiar with her. She was nominated in the supporting race for Birdman, and now she gives this really big emotional performance, this big showy kind of full throttle diva performance that they like. They've nominated, they've given Oscars in recent years to Reese Witherspoon and Loretta Lynn and Liza and Streisand for song belting roles. But yet, if you look at this category, there are 3 other people here who actually have a shot, I think. Isabelle Huppert is this year's Emmanuel Riva, and if you go back a couple of years, I think a lot of us felt that if there were just a couple more weeks in that old Oscar race, Emmanuel Riva could have beaten Jennifer Lawrence. I mean, there was so much momentum going for that film that you could feel that it was possible. And then in the case of Meryl Streep, if you look at her, she could theoretically become the liberal firebrand around which Hollywood rallies to send a message to Trump-led Washington, D.C. Don't say she can't pull off an upset. She did it a couple of years ago when everyone said that Viola Davis was going to win lead actress, and here came Meryl with The Iron Lady. That said, Natalie Portman, the one I'm forgetting here, the Natalie Portman, my favorite performance of the batch. I remember Jack Matthews, our fellow pundit, saying in a chat we did a few days ago, where he said that, the minute I saw that performance, I said, it's all, the Oscar race is all wrapped up. She's got it. And then he saw La La Land and believes as a pundit, and he's a wise one to believe that Emma has this. That said, do any of you guys think that this race could be taken by anyone else other than Emma?
Yeah, I think it's only Natalie at this point. To see that, see that line move in any other direction, it would have to happen at SAG or the BAFTAs, in which case it would have to be Meryl, because Isabelle Huppert isn't nominated at either of those. And I don't really think Isabelle Huppert has, as much strength or momentum as Emmanuel Riva had a few years ago. She was in the Best Picture nominee, it was had Best Director, and Elle doesn't have that level of support, and it doesn't have the Guild and other industry nominations. So I really think it's between those 2 women, and I'm really going to be watching the SAG Awards, because I think under normal circumstances this would be Natalie Portman's, but the sweet mentality could pull her into Best Actor, or Emma Stone into Best Actress very, very easily.
Well, at SAG, Daniel, that the only real place that you've got to vote and put your La La Love is in lead actress, because Ryan Gosling's not going to win there, as we know, and it's not nominated for ensemble. So if this is the year of La La, where do you put your vote as a SAG voter, and I being one of them? So I agree with you, but I think that if Emma wins SAG, I still think there's a possibility for Natalie at the Oscars. Jackie didn't do quite as well today. It was one nomination shy, I forget which category, that we thought it was going to get in, and it didn't. But it showed up in still some of the crafts.
Yeah, I got 3 nominations: costume design, score, and best actress.
I think Meryl Streep's a very interesting, even other than what happens at SAG on Sunday, which is probably Emma Stone. That speech at the Globes, we can't overlook it. And there may be Oscar voters, like you just said, Tom, that want to stick it to the establishment. They also want to see what would she say. We know she's going to get a 4th Oscar at some point. I mean, there's just no doubt in my mind. She gets nominated for almost every role. I think it's possible. I mean, in a category that's got that for, potential. It might only take a handful of votes to turn that category in one that's so upside down.
I don't think they liked her movie, and that does hurt Meryl. I mean, it didn't get into makeup. We all thought it would win makeup. It didn't even get in there. It didn't get, the screenplay or the directing or even production design.
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant's a huge one, yeah.
So, Chris and Marcus, you're in Los Angeles. I mean, Tom, last year you were the hack and said Spotlight was going to win Best Picture in the last few days, and you were proven right. And I think one of your rationales for changing from Revenant, which the majority of experts, including myself, were predicting, was because of all of the events that had gone on, especially in Los Angeles. And you really, you said that every time you turned around, there was a lunch, there was a dinner, there was a breakfast, there was something for Spotlight, and it had Lisa Tayback behind it. So do you think, this year, say for in this Best Actress race, I mean, that'll go on between now and the end of next month. How much will it matter, and who is more likely to be doing that? Emma Stone or Natalie Portman? I know is expecting a baby. Meryl Streep's sort of above all that.
You're on mute.
Oh.
Pardon me, I have construction going on above or below me here. The Emma Stone by far is running the best ground game. We see her at all of the events. Ryan Gosling was not as available, but she's been carrying the torch for La La everywhere. Natalie's done a lot more than we thought she would. She's been a little more available than previously projected. But if it comes down to a ground game, Emma's certainly been leading the torch. And speaking of Emma, of Lisa Tayback, we have to explain to the viewers here who don't know these people behind the scenes, but Lisa is the campaigner du jour of Hollywood. She won Best Picture last year with Spotlight by running the best ground game. She is the La La campaigner. She's like most of the campaigners, a previous graduate of the Harvey Weinstein School of Oscarology, meaning she had headed his campaign for a while, including those Best Picture wins for The King's Speech and The Artist. So she knows what she's doing, and she's out there with the campaign machines, and obviously doing a really remarkable job. And you must keep that in mind when you're making your predictions, because there were Cynthia Swartz, her nemesis in terms of Oscar campaigners, just didn't have a Best Picture this year. She had Fences and she had some other things, but it often depends on behind the scenes which wizard is pulling the levers in Oz. And Lisa has delivered this La La promise all the way today. Chris and Marcus, you go to most of these events. I usually push the invitations off on you. Do you agree with the ground game analysis? And by the way, who else is doing a really good ground game?
That movie by far, just like Spotlight last year's, had the most events and receptions and parties. So I would say that's really helped it. And people, I think the movie came along at a perfect time, because people are a little disappointed and negative and downtrodden, and an upbeat musical, I think, is what kind of the industry wants to support right now. But yeah, they've had far more parties than any other movie I can think of at all.
And they will have many more.
Daniel and Paul are in New York. What are your observations on the ground games that have happened in New York in terms of the invites you get and we get?
I would say that certainly, the new Academy rules in terms of the lack thereof events has certainly kicked in the last few weeks. That things have to be pre-approved now. So, I mean, the New York crowd is used to, I think, fancier fare than the people in La La Land. And so I think there's been reduced turnouts because they're not getting their free roast beef dinners, so I think that it's somewhat muted this year. I think it's not as aggressive as it has been in previous years.
All right, let's talk about Marcus, you had a thought? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to suggest maybe we have to mention the diversity factor, because the past 2 years, all 20 acting nominations were all white, and it created a lot of controversy. And Daniel's doing this item right now on diversity. And is this a record year, Daniel?
Well, overall, it's hard to say, but in a few categories, it absolutely is. More Best Picture nominated Black producers than ever before. There are 3 films with Black producers nominated. That's unprecedented. 3 out of the 5 supporting actress nominees are Black. First time that category, or any acting category, has been majority Black at the Oscars. 4 out of the 5 directors nominated for Best Documentary Feature are Black. That's unprecedented. Best Cinematography, Bradford Young, Arrival, the second Black cinematographer nominated for cinematography. Joy McMillan for Moonlight Editing, the first Black woman nominated for editing. So so much across the board. And Dev Patel, Asian actor, nominated for supporting actor, along with Mahershala Ali and Lin-Manuel Miranda, potentially becoming the youngest EGOT winner for Moana. I mean, it's incredibly encouraging how much diversity there is, and hopefully there will continue to be. One thing that's important to do is not be complacent, because the last 2 years it's been Oscars so white. The year right before it was 12 Years a Slave winning Best Picture. So let's hope they don't decide, okay, we're done for another 4 years, and and decide to just keep the.
So Daniel, did the Oscars overperform in terms of expectation on the diversity, or what's your assessment?
They did, certainly. I mean, you said that Amy Adams was left out, but bringing Ruth Negga in made every single acting category had at least one person of color nominated in it. I don't know if that's ever happened before. It possibly has, but it's certainly rare. None of the projects, like at the BAFTAs, it was kind of surprising. Some of the projects with people of color underperformed. Hidden Figures got less than expected. Fences got less than expected. Moonlight missed out in a couple of key races at BAFTAs. Here, there was no sign of that.
And we must say that a couple of these people are frontrunners to win, like Viola Davis and Mahershala Ali. Speaking of that race, the one big surprise here was that Michael Shannon got in. Over at BAFTA, Nocturnal Animals had 9 nominations, and the only nomination it scored today was for Michael Shannon. So he didn't get in as a result of like a lot of love for Nocturnal Animals. He got in because he's the actor's actor. That was my dumbest change in the middle of the night. I felt that he fit the profile and could get in. But that said, could he win? This is Mahershala Ali a lock? Remember who won last year? It was the actor's actor in an upset. It was Mark Rylance. Is there any chance here we could see that same kind of thing happen? Of course, in Nocturnal Animals, it's not up for Best Picture. He doesn't have all the cards that Rylance was holding last year, but Rylance wasn't even campaigning, and at least Shannon has done that. Who's got some thoughts here?
It's hard to say Mahershala is a lock because he lost the Golden Globe. Although he did lose, this is a great morning for Mahershala. The guy he lost to was snubbed today. So he can't lose to the same person twice. We'll see what happens at SAG. I think Viola, for supporting actress, is probably one of the locks of the night. You know, it's going to be La La Land. We know that for picture, and we know Viola's winning. Take those two to the bank.
The person it's just really intriguing me as of today. I watched one of those roundtables yesterday with a lot of the potential actor contenders, and they're all mainly the younger guys that got in today, but one of them was Jeff Bridges. And these guys were just hanging on every word he said. At one point, the moderator even said, well, we're going to have to wrap up. And one of them, I think it was Casey Affleck, said, I'll let Jeff keep telling stories. This is great. Of course, I don't think he wanted to talk much at all. But I just watched that and I thought, are we underestimating Jeff Bridges? I know he just won, 5 years ago? 5 or 6 years
but
ago.
Christoph Waltz just won twice in this category.
Right.
3
This
years
is the
apart.
veteran
Right.
actor in the group. And
this is a category that often goes to veteran actors.
Best Picture nominee. The role is just like right up his alley. I mean, perfectly cast. And we're not seeing, it'll be interesting to see what SAG does, what BAFTA does, because we haven't seen any kind of unification in this category at all yet.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I think Mahershala is possibly vulnerable, and we might, but he's been winning so much up to this point, except for the Golden Globes. The Golden Globe was the first kind of stumble on his trip to the Oscars. So that's not necessarily relevant because Aaron Taylor Johnson was snubbed by the Oscars, but it could indicate that, okay, well, maybe they will go in another direction at SAG or at BAFTA. And I don't think it'll be Michael Shannon, though. I agree with Chris that it could be Jeff Bridges. I think it also could be Dev Patel, another Best Picture nominee with a lot of support behind it. So though he I'm not sure he doesn't have the gravitas of a Jeff Bridges. He's a much younger actor, and so it might be Bridges in the best position to upset. If he hadn't won for Crazy Heart, I think this would be a very different race.
Oh, yeah. But I don't think that Jeff Bridges has the scene, the big showy scene in Hell or High Water that you normally need to win this thing. But as we know, they're not voting on the best of anything at the Oscars. They look at the list. Oh, we love this person. We love that person. We forgive this one. We want to crown this one. And so that is often a factor, just the name recognition. And he is the one actor in the one veteran in a category that often goes to veterans here, from Jack Palance to as recently as Christopher Plummer and Alan Arkin and on and on and on. That's what they really love here. So he's a threat. I agree.
The only other thing I was thinking about too in this particular race, this is the whole season now, the last 3 months or 4 months since we saw Moonlight. The only thing I would hear from people, other than saying how much they love the movie and all of that, was they were disappointed that Mahershala was only in the first third.
Right.
So if anything hurts him, that's the only complaint that I've heard.
And Paul, you always beat all of our scores. What are you doing for actor? Because everyone seems to think Casey Affleck is going to win, but I think Denzel still has a really good shot. Denzel's the one that does all of the acting. He gives the performance. So I'm curious what you're doing.
He gives the most performance, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly, I remember Tom and one of our experts, Tarek, sitting on that same couch that Tom's on now. Tarek was talking about Denzel winning, remember, at the Globes, and it didn't happen. I don't know. I think that's such a good question, Marcus, because, and I would sort of, as good as I am, and we're all very good at this predicting, there are people who come to Gold Derby that are far better than the rest of us. There's the people that did so well in the last couple of years are all-stars. There's the people that just did so well predicting these nominations, including, I happened to see the fellow that came second last year, first last year is second this year, Jason Messiasen. So really, we can talk all we want, but the people to follow really are those users of the thousands upon thousands of people. And yeah, I'm going to be really curious as to see which way it goes in the next few weeks, because I think Casey Affleck is uncomfortable with campaigning. Denzel is sort of beloved in Hollywood. He's got two. And it's sort of the Meryl Streep story in that I think before she won for Iron Lady, if you asked most people, I remember asking them, how many Oscars do you think Meryl Streep has? And they said, oh, she must have 3 or 4. And I think a lot of people probably think Denzel's got. So if he gets the achievement of Fences and getting it into Best Picture and it's making money, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, part of the fun of watching the Oscars are the upsets. It may play havoc with our predictions success rate, but that's really last year, Mark Rylance winning over Sylvester Stallone. I mean, how many experts, Tom, had Mark Rylance? 2 or 3? I think Jack Matthews, Keith Simonton.
Did you say it's fun when there's an upset? I hate when there's an upset.
It's not all about your score, Mark.
Ex Machina winning visual effects. I wanted to throw something at the TV. I had it in 5th place.
That's because you're an idiot. No.
I think on that one race, though, Best Actor, Denzel has got to win SAG if he's going to win the Oscar. He's never won at SAG. Actor. Like you said before, I mean, they've rewarded a lot of people at SAG that they haven't even rewarded at the Oscars. So I'm thinking like Christopher Walken more recently, and Paul Giamatti, and in the film category and so forth. So Denzel has got. If Casey wins at SAG as well, I think that race is over.
Well, let me just jump in here and say, forget anyone else's predictions except Tom O'Neill's when it comes to SAG. Because I talk about this all the time, but I take you back 2 years when I called him right before I was turning off the prediction center and said, Tom, you were the only expert predicting Eddie Redmayne over Michael Keaton. Are you nuts? Michael Keaton plays an actor. The actors are going to go for him. And Tom was right. So, Tom, who are you saying for SAG?
And I was saying that because it was the ground game thing. It was Eddie was just doing real well there. I don't know. This is a real toss-up, but here's some insight for you. As a SAG voter, I get screeners, and the screeners that were sent, the DVDs for Manchester and Moonlight, arrived fairly late. I was very surprised at how late those came in. So if and I had already voted like 2 weeks before by the time I got the Moonlight one, which was just last week, I think. So they're worried about piracy issues and all that at the studio. So yes, you can watch these things on download, and they give you the option of doing that at iTunes, etc. And but all the principal movies, the biggies, were sent by disc to the voters. So if that matters, that could mean that the rivals on both Best Acting and Supporting Actor have a shot to topple the front runners of Casey Affleck and Mahershala Ali. I'm going with both of them now, but I'm tempted to switch sometimes.
I think, just from my perspective of seeing the invitations and looking at what's going on from that, Emma on her categories by far got, like you said, the ground game. She's doing everything. I know Casey's reluctant to do some of this stuff, and he's not very good at it either. But Denzel has not been like Mr. Campaigner this particular season. He's done about as little as maybe less than Casey has. He's very charming when he does something, generally. But I don't think it's not like Denzel's taken the reins of this and tried to outrun Casey with the campaigning.
Good point.
And I thought he would. I really thought he would take advantage of the fact that Casey did not like doing this.
Right, because a couple years ago when he had that movie where he was the drunk flight, the pilot, he was everywhere. He was really, really working it, and I think he had his heart broken there, quite frankly. Hey, 2 Academy governors were snubbed today, Annette Bening and Tom Hanks. Wow.
That's a pattern we've been noticing, isn't it?
Yeah. What gives with that, huh? 20th Century Woman got in for Best Screenplay, so it's not an anti-20th Century Woman thing. I think it's just an overly crowded Oscar Best Actress race in the case of Annette Bening. And poor Tom Hanks, he just hasn't gotten in since, Castaway 20 years ago, or however long ago that was, 15 years ago.
I still love you, Tom Hanks. You're my favorite.
Well, see, that's your real reward, Mr. Hanks, right there. Marcus's love.
Well, at least this time, they didn't give Tom Hanks the indignity of nominating everything else about his movie but him. Like, he plays the title character in Captain Phillips, and he, nominated for Best Picture, and he doesn't get nominated. Bridge of Spies nominated for Best Picture, he didn't get nominated. So this year, it only got a sound editing nomination. So it's not like it was just him that they were
Good point.
So, I mean, you say they're, governors of the acting branch. So the branch elects them. I mean, they've both done it they've been reelected in each case. I think Tom Hanks might have done it. Maybe even he might be coming up to the maximum number of years. So what is the disconnect? Why is it that Meryl Streep reads the phone book and gets a nomination, but Tom Hanks in Sully, in Captain Phillips, in Saving Mr. Banks, I mean, time and again, he's in the conversation and they reject him, or in the case of Annette Bening, where it's kind of the overdue, and they reject her. And yet when it comes to the voting, and there are other people in those races for the governorships, they vote for them.
Yeah, I don't know. It must be a case of been there, done that. Let's bring in somebody new. Familiarity brings contempt. I don't know. I think they're beloved in the Academy. I don't think it's a reflection on them personally. I think that in the case of Annette Bening, there just wasn't enough love for the film. I think we all expected it to do better, period, at the box office, with critics, with Oscar nominations in other categories. It was a deeply felt, beautifully etched performance, very grand, very brave, too, with all her wrinkles showing. But they didn't use any of that gauze. But on the other hand, it wasn't transformative. It wasn't, her playing Jackie Kennedy or something, which they like. And I think that may have hurt her. In the case of Tom Hanks, I think the movie peaked too early. Look, if you look back at our predictions, all of us, a month or two ago, Sully did very well, and then it just kept dropping. And I think that may have been a case of just fatigue. The movie overperformed in terms of box office and the rest of it. And of course, he plays a real life heroic person. He had that going for him, but there are other factors here. And I think in the case of Hanks, it's just his wins for Philadelphia and Forrest Gump were decades ago. And because they were back to back, the fact that he's been, recognized in multiple ways, as a multiple winner was a little more noticeable. So that's like, we took care of it. I don't know. Does anyone else have a thought?
Yeah, Meryl Streep, she does take on a lot of roles that are, she puts on all the costumes and the wigs, like Into the Woods and Florence Foster Jenkins, the Iron Lady. She's playing a different performance each time, not just playing a different character. She's really putting on a show. And this is her 20th nomination today, or as she calls it, just another Tuesday. So congratulations, Meryl Streep. I think that's, I think we're doing a photo gallery, right, Chris, of all of her nominations.
Yeah, all 20 nominations.
But we need to one of all her losses, right?
Yes, we had that in the works, yes.
She's lost 17 times.
The poor thing. What a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
16. She hasn't lost yet.
16. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at math. Yes, sorry.
We haven't talked about Hugh Grant, and internally we were all the last 2 or 3 weeks wondering, there was confusion about, I think this hurt him more than anything. Was he lead? Was he supporting? The Globe said lead, others said supporting. He's one of these rare people that got into every single precursor and yet didn't get an Oscar nomination. But for days we were all saying, he might be that type. Not him personally, but the type of role and the fact that if just enough, he might have had enough overall votes between lead and supporting to get in one or the other, but they don't count your votes in the other category. So that hurt him a lot. And he still, after 30 years, doesn't have a nomination yet.
Our writer, Riley Chow, has a different theory why he was snubbed. And we're going to post this today or tomorrow, that he's playing a man who's supporting a lead woman. It's been 5 years since a supporting man was nominated for supporting a lead actress. So that's very, very interesting little pattern Riley's noticed. So look for that article.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting that at the Oscars, the long-suffering wife is is an institution unto itself. Viola Davis is probably going to win with that kind of a role. And it's because, film is generally so male-dominated, and the films that are recognized by the Oscars are so male-dominated that they rarely, I think, have opportunities to reward, a man who's actually playing second fiddle to a woman.
Mm.
Who else has some random thoughts before we wrap up here? Observations, things to look out for.
It's a good year for film. All my favorites made it in. La La Land, Arrival, Hidden Figures, Hacksaw Ridge. These are my favorite films of the year.
And me, as sad as I am for the Amy Adams snub. Arrival is my favorite film of the year. The fact
We agree on something. Wow.
Yes, the one thing. The fact that Ruth Negga got in and 20th Century Women got that screenplay nomination. These are two of my favorite films of the year that I've been watching die on the vine for so much of this award season. And so it's nice to see them at least kind of inch back in just a little.
What did people think of the way they were announced today?
Boo! Stupid. It was so stagey and so obvious, and just the thing I hate most, let's reveal this. We all, editors of Gold Derby, get besieged in the days before nominations come out by publicists going, who on staff takes reactions from nominees, right? Well, we never publish that crap because it's all the same bullshit from everyone. Oh, I'm so honored to be nominated by my peers. We have more realistic, real journalism to do instead of that crud. And watching that thing this morning, every single, I was so surprised. Oh, my honor, all that honor by my peers thing. And I just was so offended by Gabby Sidibe saying, how do I get an Oscar nomination? Well, I talked to Lee Daniels. I guess it was kind of easy for me. I was like, just why did they air that? Oh my God.
I feel bad for all the publicists. These publicists work their butts off every year. This is one of their big rewards, getting to go to the Oscar nominations ceremony, and they just canceled it this year. I hope they go back to it next year.
I don't know if you guys mentioned that Tom's sort of battling, I don't know, the flu, pneumonia, bronchitis, all sorts of things. Obviously, he's roaring back. This hangout has made him better because
that's how sick I am, right? Am I alone? Did anyone else think that was just
I think
a train wreck this morning?
The way they announced how they were going to do it was very misleading. We thought
yes,
it was going to be pre-recorded, but all of these people would be announcing the nominees. Each one did. The announcer, whoever the lady was the only one. It was just and here are the nominees for Best Adapted Screenplay, and that guy could have recorded that weeks ago. He didn't have to know anything. The other thing that I thought, and I'm being very, I don't know what the word is, mischievous here, but Cheryl Boone Isaacs got a lot of criticism the past 2 or 3 years for mispronouncing people's names. I think this whole thing was geared, she's a PR person. The whole reason for today's, whatever you want to call it, was because she didn't want to have to announce live names anymore.
Well, listen.
So when she's out as president, they may go back to this again.
No, my conspiracy theory is that they just didn't want to. Or that thing in the morning, we've all been to it. It's a real train wreck there in terms of organizing things and getting the cables hooked up within the theater and just feeding everybody. There's food, and of course, you know how greedy journalists are when they put a food table out there. They're all piling onto that when they should be doing their jobs, and it's just It's talk about a train wreck, and it's at 5 a.m. in Los Angeles, and everybody's still hungover from the night before's parties. So I think they got rid of it just because it was an inconvenience, and they could manage this. I interrupted, Marcus. Go ahead. What did you think?
Oh no, I think Paul.
Oh no! I just wanted to say before we get banned that while it may not have gone according to plan this morning, what we can do is know that 33 days from now, there's going to be a really wonderful Oscar cast hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. Finally, he's been wanting that job for years. And then I think it'll be, whether it's a sweep by La La Land or there's some upsets that upset Marcus, I think it's going to be a really fun Oscar show. And the thing that I want anyone watching this hangout to do right now is to make their first predictions. I mean, the prediction center is live in all 24 categories, and it might be, you might think it's easy to just predict La La Land and everything, but boy, when you get down to those animated shorts and the various other categories, that's when we really count on our collective wisdom. At least I do, when I at the last minute change my predictions, hopefully to the right ones.
That's a good place to end. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We're going to have lots more discussion moving forward, and we'll probably contradict everything we've just said here. But what an exciting morning, and what a great year for wonderful films. I agree. And usually I just hate most of the Oscar movies. I bitched all of you guys. But hey, I'm on the La La train, honey. Sign me up. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.